So how do we really mobilize and galvanize people into more acts of solidarity that are bigger in scope, that are larger in scope, that are based on building relationships? Because I know, again, it's very hard, right? People spend their entire jobs just addressing the Muslim ban, right? And when you're focusing so closely on one issue, it becomes harder to look at all the related issues. So what strategies and interventions and ideas do you have for how do we actually foster concrete ways of solidarity?
The name of my group is Sudu for Solidarity. Sudu in Japanese means crane, and the crane for us is a symbol of nonviolence and healing. During World War II, virtually nobody protested, marched, stood up, or showed up when Japanese Americans disappeared from our homes, our schools, our jobs, our farms. And we really felt like nobody cared. We disappeared. The reason we're showing up now is because we want to be the allies that we needed during World War II. And for us, the necessity of our own healing requires that we actually change the narrative of victim and show up as a powerful advocate for people who have had their agency stripped from them. What was beautiful about what people talked about, the prisoners in Guantanamo, is that they've held on to their agency. No prisoner gives up their agency. Even when they try to take it from you, it's always there. It just has to have the chance to shine in the light of day. We recognize from our own liberation struggle that multiple communities have been fighting the same fight, but we're all in our own silos, fighting it separately. And that this is the time when we must come together. So when the Trump surrogates started talking about Muslim registries, I wrote an op-ed in the New York Times. I had never done that before, but I was like, well, if no one else is going to do it, then I'm going to do it. And that's what lots of people are doing in my community right now and in other communities, and we have to keep reaching out to each other. We went to Fort Sill to stop 1,600 children from being brought there. We built deep relationships, familial relationships now with AIM Indian Territory, with Dream Action Oklahoma, with Oklahoma City Black Lives Matters. And we consider each other family now, and we show up for each other. And that's why we went back again a month later when United We Dream organized a campaign that had 500 people, including like 250 young teenage DACA folks who shut down the highway. We brought 25 Buddhist priests who chanted the Heart Sutra at the gate. When you join together in movement like that, and then try to heal together, healing is really important, then something can happen that's different. In June, here in Washington, D.C., we're gathering thousands of people the weekend of June 5th to the 7th. And we're staging a national protest in front of the White House, actually. We're bringing 125,000 folded cranes, and that has been the hallmark of our group. We hang cranes on the fences of the detention sites. These are sacred symbols now that are really talismans that are imbued with the caring, the power of love and transformation from all of the people who folded them. And we take them wherever we go, and we do a sacred calling of the ancestors to join us in those places. We welcome you and we call on you to join us there that weekend. You can look on our website, suduforsolidarity.org, for information. You can contact the organizers of tonight for more information as well. We're also organizing a national caravan of freedom. We're calling it the Freedom Caravan. It will launch from Los Angeles 10 days prior to the DC action. It will contain activists and artists of multi-generations and multiple communities. It will go through the Southwest, through our historical concentration camps, and then stop at detention sites all across the Southwest, into Texas, and across the Deep South. We are a proud member of Detention Watch Network. Detention Watch Network and Center for Constitutional Rights are our national partners on this project. It is part of the Communities Not Cages campaign. It's an abolition campaign to stop the expansion of these effing prisons across the United States, but that are being opened in poor rural communities, particularly in the South, where the economies are struggling, and they're manipulating working class people into working in these prison sites. So that's what we're doing. And like I said, these are extraordinary times. Ordinary people are required to step up and do things.
I think when it comes to what we can do, it's definitely about embracing solidarity and recognizing that we have to fight together. When we think about human rights, that's something I believe that gives us a basis to unite our fight, because oftentimes we're in our silos, fighting for, okay, I'm fighting against migrant detention, I'm fighting against detention from the war on terrorism, I'm fighting against mass incarceration, I'm fighting against homophobia, xenophobia. I mean, there's so many different fights out there. But when it comes to human rights, I feel like that's a foundation. And when I say human rights, I want to make clear I'm not talking about like the United States human rights, what they define as human rights, because for me, human rights predates the founding of the United States. Human rights go back to the first societies when human beings saw avenues for self-expression, self-determination, self-defense, creativity. That's human rights. And now it's found, some of it has found its way into the human rights charters, but I don't believe that we need to look at that document because oftentimes it limits human rights, So for me, I think it is recognizing that's our commonality that we could unite the fight around. And oftentimes it's also not enough just to say I'm against war. Sometimes we have to say, you know what, I'm against war, but I also support self-defense. So countries that are on the receiving arm of American aggression, foreign aggression, have the right to defend themselves, have a human right to defend themselves. I think that oftentimes that gets lost in our discourse. Even if you're nonviolent, I think we have to, even if you're nonviolent, I believe that there is room for self-defense. And I think we need to lift that up, because oftentimes, the opposition says that they go to war to prevent war. That's how crazy it is now. So for me, I think it starts with recognizing those inherent human rights that we all have. The right to be free from repression, the right to be free from your limitations as a human being expressed, the right to be not placed in cages for the rest of your life, to not be placed in cages where you are humiliated. And it goes a lot deeper than that, but it's that intersectionality that centers our right to full expression as human beings. And I think once we can unite around that, then that can connect the struggles against mass incarceration, the struggles against mass detentions, the struggle against homophobia, racism, and all the other isms that we're fighting.
What I'm really excited about after tonight is I feel like this is the future of the closed Guantanamo movement, and it's about making the connections, and we often talk about making connections, and it's making the connections is more right than writing the event description of an event like this. It's sitting and it's learning and it's talking and it's maintaining relationships and showing up for one another. I haven't known Mike that long, but we've had many conversations together, and I've learned so much from him, both on the history of Japanese American incarceration and what it means to be an ally. And sometimes you just have to invite people to join, right? Invite Mike to join us, invite Stu to endorse the rally, invite Celine to join us. And I think this is inspiration for me that there are people who care about this issue and who want to be involved. There's a lot of fatigue around Guantanamo and the desire to find new partners, and new partners are there. You just have to, reach out to them. So I think that's important. And then another thing I just want to raise is kind of the value of art. And we talk a lot about what we're fighting against, and maybe a little less so what we're fighting for. And I've found in the Guantanamo context that some of the most powerful and joyful work that I've done is around supporting art that's come out of Guantanamo, art that's produced in response to Guantanamo, and it's been a different way to engage and not be so desensitized because you're stimulating a different part of your brain, the universal language of art, and the way, frankly, that Guantanamo art has been able to transcend borders in a way that the prisoners cannot. They're not allowed to be in the United States, but their art can be hanging on a wall somewhere. And so there is power in that and supporting that. And I love the story of the paper cranes and what they symbolize and how I actually don't know how to fold a crane. I was going to say it's actually very easy to do and anyone can do it. I don't know how, but I think that the invitation for being able to contribute in some way that means more once it sort of leaves your hands is really powerful. So I just love the idea of cultivating art as part of our solidarity work.